Once upon a time, there was a horrible, nasty imp. He didn't have a name, he was that horrible. As soon as his mother saw him, she kicked him away. And the imp grew to be nastier and horribler with every day. He was so horrible, in fact, he built himself a magic mirror so he could see the horror and evil in his own unspeakable face. One day, he decided to go to heaven and annoy all the angels. This was a big mistake. Angels can be pretty vicious themselves. But he never made it. He just started to laugh at the first angel when he lost his grip on the magic mirror. Oh, no, no! But it was too late. The mirror had fallen to earth. And the imp was so cross, he stamped his foot and tore himself in half. But the mirror kept falling. Little did anybody on earth know that it brought with it a curse. If a speck of glass landed in your eye, anything that was good, you would see as nothing but horrible. And anything bad, you would think looked beautiful. And if a speck pierced your heart, you would be truly wicked, for your heart would turn to ice. Meanwhile, in the colder part of the world, known as Scandinavia, there lived two children, Gerda and Kay. Kay was the boy, which was funny because I always thought Kay was a girl's name, but anyway. They lived next door to each other and they played with each other every day. Until one day, during a game, Kay cried out that he felt something, a splinter, in his eye. The pain quickly went away, but there was no doubt at all, to those of us that know about such things, it was a splinter from the magic mirror. And it wasn't long after that Kay's heart began to freeze to ice. Everything good became bad, and everything bad became irresistible. Kay wouldn't play with Gerda anymore. He preferred scientific games and preferred those who dealt in wickedness. One day, Kay left Gerda on her own, as usual, and went out to the top of the hill to sledge. What he saw made his eyes bug out of his head, for there was the most wonderful sleigh he'd ever seen. It was the Snow Queen. There she was, in a sleigh made of ice, covered with a shawl of snow, and the more beautiful for it. "Come into the sledge, my dear," she called to Kay, "and warm yourself beneath my cloak." Of course, Kay could not see that her cloak was pure ice. One kiss, and Kay would travel with her forever. One more kiss, and he forgot Kay, his hometown, and everything. Forgot Gerda, rather, and his hometown, and everybody in it. And away they flew, over the hills and the clouds, far, far away. Of course there was a search. Gerda helped search for days and days and days, but Kay wasn't found. Eventually, she decided to go and find him by herself. Gerda left her own home and went down to the river, which seemed as good a place to look as any. "Here are my shoes," she told the river. "You can have them if you tell me where Kay is." She threw them in, but the shoes floated back. Twice more Gerda tried this, until on the third time the shoes floated even further out. Gerda tried to reach them. She saw a boat moored to the bank, and she climbed in, thinking that she could float just far enough to grab the shoes. But the mooring rope came loose, and the boat floated away. Gerda was terrified as her home whipped past. But all of a sudden she saw a cottage on the shore and called out. An old woman that lived in the cottage He saw what was happening, came out with an old pole with a hook on the end, and hooked the boat. "What a pretty girl," said the old woman. "What a companion you will make." She brought Gerda in, and she warmed her up, gave her food, and dried her clothes. And as she combed her hair, Gerda forgot all about her hometown, and the garden, and her quest. Days passed, and the old woman thought that if Gerda couldn't see the roses in her garden, she would never remember her quest again, and so she made the roses disappear. But one day, Gerda saw a rose in the old woman's hat. And just like that, all her memories flooded back. She ran from the garden instantly, and ran on as far as she could, until an old raven, who flew overhead, saw her and asked why she was journeying so far. "I may be able to help with your quest," he said. "My sweetheart lives in the palace. She may be able to help." And with that, he flew off. He was back very shortly, and he led Gerda to the palace. I can't get used to Kay being a boy's name. He led Gerda to the palace. The raven's sweetheart was waiting. "My betrothed has told me of your story," she said. "I hope I can help." With that, she led them to a room in the palace. The raven had told Gerda that Kay was a prince now, and was married to the local princess. But as soon as Kay awoke, or what Gerda thought was Kay, she burst into tears, because, of course, it wasn't Kay. The handsome face on the pillow was completely different. The raven had told her that the boy had won the princess with his lively and confident manner. But, despite this, it wasn't Kay. When the prince and princess woke, they demanded to know what Gerda wanted. And with tears in her eyes, she told her story. The prince and princess were so upset, they promised Gerda a golden carriage that would take her on the rest of her journey. And they wished her luck, and would give her new clothes and new boots as well. So the next day, Gerda set off in a gold-encrusted carriage. This was a mistake, because the carriage shone so brightly on the road that it attracted the attention of a band of robbers. "It's gold! It's gold!" cried the chief of the robbers, who was an enormous 6'5" woman mud wrestler called Big Bertha Basham. And she leapt out of the woods with all her robber mates and stopped the coach, and they dragged Gerda out. "Cure!" said Big Bertha. "What a plump little girl! She'll do nicely for my tea." And she took out a long, sharp knife and was just about to cut Gerda in half, when suddenly, "Ouch!" Bertha roared out, because her daughter, Tiny Tina Terrifier, had bitten her on the bottom quite hard. "Get off her!" cried Tiny Tina. "You ain't gonna hurt her! She's gonna be my friend!" "You impudent little..." began Big Bertha, but it was too late. Tiny Tina had pulled Gerda away. Oh, Big Bertha was cross, but then she remembered the carriage. "We'll take it home," she said, "and have a great big party." And so the robbers whipped the horses into life and followed the carriage. And Tiny Tina drove it to the robbers' hideout. Well, it was just as horrible as you might expect. The robbers all drank too much lemonade and fizzy orange, and Big Bertha started to dance on the table. She sang, and in the end, Tiny Tina dragged Gerda off to her own room, which was full of pigeons. Tiny Tina Terrifier took Gerda up to her room, where there were lots of pigeons in cages. "Ooh, ooh, they're all mine!" cried Tiny Tina. Then she dragged a reindeer from the shadows. "I keep him tied to the wall, and every night I tickle his throat with my knife, just to show who's master. Mistress type thing." When she was asleep, the pigeons all began to croon. "Ooh, ooh, we've seen Kay." "Where is he?" asked Gerda. "Ooh, ooh, we saw him in the Snow Queen's sleigh. We were lucky to survive, for I see breath. Many of our friends died. She must have taken him aboard to her snow palace in Lapland." The next morning, Gerda told her story to the robber girl, and the robber girl got the reindeer away from the wall. "Do you know where Lapland is?" she asked. "Of course," he responded. "Then you will take Gerda." With that, the Gerda got onto the reindeer's back, and the robber girl let them out of the window after she'd given Gerda back her warm boots and furry hat. Miles and miles they travelled. Gerda saw many lights in the sky, shimmering and shining at odd intervals. "Those are the northern lights," the reindeer told her. "Are they not beautiful?" Soon they approached Lapland, and they landed outside the cottage of a Lapp woman. The Lapp woman was surprised to see them. "You poor child," she said. "You must eat and drink and warm yourself, because you have many a mile to travel yet. I will write a message on a piece of dried codfish, for I have no paper, and you will take this to a Finn woman who lives in Finnmark, where the Snow Queen's palace is." "Can you not give Gerda any more advice?" asked the reindeer. "No," said the Lapp woman simply, and she wrote a few words on a piece of dried codfish. When Gerda was warm, the reindeer took off again, and they travelled for many, many more days to the land of Finnmark. Now, Finnmark is right on the edge of the world, the coldest, iciest part of the world, even further than Lapland. No human can survive there without magic. But Gerda had the magic reindeer. And when they found the Finn woman, Gerda told her story. The Finn woman took the reindeer aside. "Little Kay is trapped in the Snow Queen's palace," she told her. "But this will be a difficult task." She read the message on the codfish and then dropped it into her pot, because she never wasted anything. Then she unravelled an ancient parchment, so ancient that she had to touch it very gently to stop it disintegrating. Then she outlined a simple plan. The reindeer took off again, with Gerda on his back. The Finn woman had replaced her furry hat and boots with much warmer ones, and they approached the gates of the Snow Queen's palace. "Now," said the reindeer, "I cannot go any further. You are on your own. Good luck." And he bid Gerda a tearful farewell. Gerda tried to go forward, but she was surrounded by snowflakes. These snowflakes began to giggle evilly. They were, in fact, the Snow Queen's guards, and they formed lots of horrible, evil creatures. She began to realize that they were something untoward and began to mutter the Lord's Prayer. And as she muttered, angels appeared before her. They rushed the guards and smashed them to bits. And Gerda proceeded onward. Meanwhile, Kay was sitting in the middle of an enormous frozen lake. He had to solve a puzzle the Snow Queen had set before him. If he could spell out the word eternity, the Queen would give him the world and a new pair of skates and be nice to him forever. But try as he might, he couldn't. When Gerda saw the frozen lake, she couldn't contain herself. She didn't care if she fell over. She ran towards Kay and held him in her arms and began to weep. And her tears fell on Kay's face, and the tears began to get into his eyes. And the splinter of glass was washed out in a moment. It fell to the ice and shattered. Kay could see again. And as he saw Gerda, he began to weep. And as he wept and she wept, the tears fell onto his chest, and the splinter of glass around his heart melted in a sea of tears. "Oh, Gerda," he cried, "where have you been, and what have I done? How cold and empty this place is." And as he cried, his tears joined with Gerda's. They formed teary angels, and as they held each other, the ice danced for joy. When it finished dancing, it spelt eternity. The spell was complete, and Kay and Gerda could leave without repercussion, and so they did. The raven saw them on their journey home. The reindeer had brought a friend and took them all the way back to their hometown. But on the way, they met the robber girl riding one of the horses from the carriage. "I decided I'll go travelling," she said. Then she looked at Kay and spoke in a normal voice and said, "I wonder if you know what it's like to have such a good friend who would travel the ends of the earth for you." Then she was gone. Gerda and Kay rode home, and they lived happily ever after for the rest of their days. As for the Snow Queen, when she saw the fiery lake, she stamped and swore so much she fell through the ice and drowned horribly and miserably and coldly. But who cares about her?